Good day to you. My name is SHAYKHSPEAREA and welcome to this tutorial on what I believe is the biggest crime in English grammar or punctuation, comma splicing and sentence fusion. Now, there are crimes in English grammar. This famous example is an example of how correct punctuation can save a person's life. Let's eat grandma, right? Or let's eat grandpa. If you miss out that vocative comma, which is a comma which many people forget about, it changes the meaning. Let's eat grandpa, right? Dangerous. Instead, it should be, let's eat grandpa, right? So that's an example of how important grammar is. But what's the topic of today? This one, before I talk about that, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I run SHAYKHSPEAREA Tuition. So I'm a qualified English teacher for over 15 years. I'm also a professional proofreader. And I founded two tutoring agencies, SHAYKHSPEAREA Tuition, which mainly works in the Asian community of Leicester, and High Impact Tutors. I'm a trainer for AMS UK, which is an umbrella organization of independent schools. And I tend to do training for English, teaching English. I also do presentations and courses online. One of them is called Grammar and Punctuation Refresher for Professionals, where I had lots of, doctors, teachers, lawyers, all sorts of professionals come to just get a refresher on the basics of English grammar. And I'm also director of the Shakespeare's Online English Academy, which this lesson is mainly for them, but it's always been my dream to have this video on YouTube, because I feel this is something, it's a problem which is so widespread now, it's important to correct. And I often joke to my clients, to my parents, that I'm the chief inspector of UK's grammar police. To which sometimes parents say, "Oh, really?" And it's a joke, right? That there is no grammar police. But I'm pretty fastidious about correcting mistakes, and especially comma splices. So why is this topic so massively important? Well, first of all, it's a really basic rule, right? This is the use of full stops, basically, the use of full stops and commas, or periods, if you call them in the UK, if you're listening from the US. And there's an epidemic, there's a massive level of, in terms of the level of mistakes occurring. I'm seeing it as a teacher, I'm seeing it, this mistake being made by normal teachers, but not just any teachers. Even English teachers make this, head teachers make it. I've seen professionals, directors, you name it, at every level, people are making a comma splicing and sentence fusion. And this is possibly due to partly laziness, but also the fact is people have forgotten this rule. It's so easy, people are forgetting it. And it's quite embarrassing, because getting it wrong kind of shows one's ignorance, and it shows kind of like a lack of education, or lack of care and consideration for one's English. And the opposite is true. If you're very careful about your sentence punctuation, especially these basics about not getting a full stop wrong, not putting commas in the wrong places, or not forgetting to punctuate sentences, it shows good erudition, and it shows diligence or an attention to detail. And I've been a manager before, and I've had to employ teachers, for example, as an assistant head. And you can tell, they say in an interview, interviewers can judge a person within the first few minutes or even seconds. It's similar with writing. In an email, if an email's got comma splicing everywhere, straight away you can make a judgment that, okay, this person's doesn't have a high level of attention to detail, not even a low level of attention to detail. They can't write a few basic sentences properly, they don't take care to do that. How they're going to take care to do their jobs and their tasks properly as an employee? So it is important. And if we go back to basic sentences, this is something which we should have learned right at the beginning, right? If you think about the most basic of sentences, Tom went to the shop, full stop. He bought some milk, full stop, right? And then this is how we'd write it as a child, right? Tom went to the shop. He bought some milk. And these are simple sentences grammatically, right? Simple independent clauses. And then the next stage, we learn compound sentences. We learn to join them with a conjunction. Tom went to the shop and he bought some milk, right? So this is easy. We all know this, and we all write much more complicated sentences than this. However, we sometimes forget these basic rules. This is what's actually happening. And guys, these are some real examples from real professionals, right? So the first one's the same thing. Tom went to the shop, comma, he bought some milk. So I see this from students all the time, right? That they'll just join things together and just stick the comma in lazily, thinking that that's okay. Now, these are examples in the workplace. I'll let you know if Bob can do the job. He may be too busy, right? Again, this comma there doesn't work. Now, these are real examples which I've scoured through my email. This is from a lawyer. The form is not seeable. Now, first of all, seeable is not even a word either, right? The form is not seeable. Can you rescan the whole form? Again, comma split. I even emailed this law firm, the solicitors, and warned them about this legal executive. I can't remember if it's a solicitor or a legal executive. I think it was a legal executive or a legal assistant, paralegal. And I said, you know, you need to kind of get them to brush up on their English. This next one, this is actually from a proofreader, right? This is like, you know, it was an advert on a proofreading service. Write what you mean what you write. I mean, can you believe it? And you see this a lot in advertising slogans. And so again, this comma really is not appropriate. It's not the right punctuation mark. It's not strong enough. And then finally, this one, I hope there's something good for lunch. I'm starving, right? And then this is, you know, an example from, again, I think this was, no, I've got another example from else. This one's just another generic example. Okay, so all these are examples of commas which are not appropriate. Why? Because what is a comma splice? It's a comma splice where a comma is used incorrectly to join two sentences or main clauses. So these are all independent clauses, right? The form is not seeable, the sentence. Can you rescan the whole form? It's another sentence. You can't use a comma to separate them. Tom went to the shop, right? So if you're finding any of this difficult, just go back to this original sentence. Tom went to the shop, he bought some milk. They're two independent sentences. And we often write in independent sentences. A lot of the things we do in everyday speech, we're actually using two different sentences, and we keep using the comma. Big tip about the comma, don't use a comma unless you're very careful and you know the purpose of the comma. Commas are probably the most complicated punctuation mark. It's probably the most complicated punctuation mark in the English language. And I'll be giving a separate tutorial about that, so don't worry about that for now. So remember this, commas are too weak to join sentences. Just look at that, they just can't do the heavy lifting, right? Semicolons are a little bit stronger, full stops are the strongest, okay? So you can't join sentences with commas. Now, sentence fusion, or Americans call it run-on sentences, they're even worse. So these similar examples, Tom went to the shop, he bought some milk. So there's no punctuation at all. That's even worse, right? And sometimes you see this when people write on phones, on smartphones, that often happens there. The trees swayed in the wind, leaves fluttered to the ground. Again, right? Two different sentences. There's no punctuation separating it. Please submit the report by tomorrow. We'll check it then. So again, because in speech, maybe we'll say it fast, and but you know, it's actually two sentences. There needs to be some punctuation there. Welcome to the membership. I hope you'll find it rewarding. Now, this again, this is an example of a national organization, which is very prestigious. And again, I can't mention who it is because I don't want to embarrass them. But look, this is in their welcome letter, and it's a full, you know, it's a sentence fusion, two sentences. It's a very important sentence in that welcome letter as well. So shouldn't be happening. So what's the solution? There's three simple ways to fix comma splicing or sentence fusion. The first one is to just split it into two separate sentences. So if in doubt, right, the other two methods are a little bit harder, but if in doubt, just do separate sentences. Tom went to the shop, he bought some milk. That becomes Tom went to the shop, full stop, he bought some milk. Plastic bags are ruining the earth. We need to use cloth bags. Again, this comma is not strong enough. Change it to plastic bags are ruining the earth, full stop. We need to use cloth bags. Okay? So that's the easiest way to you know, if in doubt, just use a full stop. That's the mantra I like to use. Secondly, you can use a conjunction, right? Or you know, some of you might use the phrase connective, conjunction, the type of word which joins between clauses or sentences. So plastic bags are ruining the earth. We need to use cloth bags becomes plastic bags are ruining the earth. So we need to use cloth bags. Submit the report to Bob. He'll check it tomorrow. That changes to submit the report to Bob and he'll check it tomorrow, right? Again, the comma here is just simply not strong enough. The third solution is to use a semicolon or dash, right? There's two options. Semicolons or dashes are very similar in terms of grammatical function. So again, using the plastic bags example, we can use a semicolon there. Note with a semicolon, we don't use a capital letter after it. Semicolons can separate two sentences, two independent clauses which are linked together somehow, right? So that's useful where you don't really want a connective, you don't want a conjunction, you don't want to kind of separate it, you want to kind of have that effect to bring them together. Now, what about a dash? Well, if it's speech, here's a good rule. If it's speech or dialogue, we don't normally use semicolons. A dash is better. So look at this. Come over here. Let's see if we can dig it up. Come over here, which is a command, a sentence. Now let's change the comma to a dash. Let's see if we can dig it up, right? So here, a dash is a little bit more informal than a semicolon. And it's also good in emails and text messages. You don't really want to put a semicolon, it's too formal. Just use the dash, right? So think semicolon for formal writing, dash for informal writing, where you want to kind of have a little bit of pace. So there you have it. 3 ways to fix a comma splice or sentence fusion. Number 1, you can just separate them into two sentences with a full stop. Number 2, use a conjunction like so or and or because. And finally, 3, you can use a semicolon or a dash. I hope you found this tutorial useful. If you have children who are school age or homeschoolers and you think they'd like some extra support in their English, we have a exclusive online English academy. Go and check it out. I'll put the link under the video as well. And I'll appreciate any likes, and do spread this knowledge to any of your friends, and to especially professionals and colleagues at work who might need a little reminder. So let's spread the word and have less mistakes in our basic sentences. Thank you very much for listening. This is Shaykhspeare from Shaykhspeare Tuition. Good day to you.